Let's move on to the Big Ten, though, huh? This
do it.
also feels semi-cut and dry. Feels like Indiana, Ohio State on the crash course. Also, though, I would have said a week ago, it feels like Indiana's about to cover against Penn State. That did not happen. However, you're looking down the barrel of the Michigan game if you're Ohio State. That's really your last test. I don't think there's anything for Indiana that makes you feel all that unsure about your chances to be in Indy. But there's a couple of interesting teams here with USC, only one conference loss. Oregon, one conference loss. Michigan, one conference loss. And Michigan, if they beat Ohio State, would then have the tiebreaker over Ohio State to be in the Big Ten title game. However, they wouldn't have the tiebreaker over USC, so that whole thing would have to play itself out with those two teams. But Oregon also just chilling there with one loss, so it's a lot to unpack there. I think Michigan-Ohio State's the most interesting part of that whole thing with the conference title. I would still like to believe it's going to be Ohio State, Indiana, with how things are trending. But what are you looking at there, Cato, across the board here with these teams with one loss? And, Iowa's hanging there with 2 losses. Not to go down the rabbit hole, but a lot to unpack with the Big Ten. What are you checking out right now?
Right now, if I'm checking out Indiana, man. If it's looking like it's going to look right now and I don't think anything's going to get in their way, that could be a home game for them, no? I mean,
legit, you would think.
Indiana having a conference title game in Indy, I think it's going to be a home game. Pseudo-home game, I think, for Indiana is the most interesting thing, I think, outside of the actual race itself. But you mentioned it. Michigan, Ohio State game, always big stakes, even bigger stakes when you have the playoff era that we live in now. And I think the most intriguing part is, do we see a world where Michigan can win that game and not make the playoff? Like, they're ranked 21 heading into this week. We'll see if they move up. I don't know how much more they're going to move up between this game and their game against Ohio State, but a win against the number 1 team country, I'm just curious. I think the biggest thing I'm going to watch this week with the rankings is how much movement we have and just the upcoming weeks. How much do teams move depending on who you win and who you lose to, and how much does that give Michigan room to jump from the 20s to a team who automatically finds themselves maybe in the 12s and a team that can make a playoff push here with a big win. So that's definitely the thing to watch there. Oregon doesn't have any easy games on their schedule left. We talked about that as far as them playing only 6-win teams.
Yeah.
Showed a lot of toughness against Iowa. I think post-Indiana game, man, they're just looking tough. They're running the ball tough. It's not always pretty, but I think they're building up a maturity. And I wouldn't, if they found a way to just stumble into this game, if just all hell broke loose in the Big Ten, I'd feel really good about them post-Indiana, looking like they've learned some things. And I'm excited about them in the postseason, just between the composure of Dante Moore, running the ball well, defense looking improved. More excited for them as far as the postseason, but long story short, Indiana, Ohio State, it's hard to really close your eyes and picture anything else going on in the conference. But Michigan could keep things frisky, could get themselves in the playoff. How far do they jump is the big question for me the next couple weeks. And how far does anyone jump with the CFP committee looking a little different than it did last year?
We said it on the reaction show on Sunday morning when Oregon beat Iowa. Oregon beat Iowa at Iowa's game.
Yeah.
And so to progress the way they've progressed since the Indiana loss, and it feels like they just are going to continue to find ways to win, especially when they get those weapons back healthy and Sadiq and DeCorian Moore. Can you imagine, Kate, that we're sitting here the Sunday after conference title weekend, and we're talking about Dan Lanning being in the Big Ten 2 years and having 2 Big Ten titles to his name?
Insane.
Can you imagine? Just the way that would make other coaches in the Big Ten look. Like, oh, this is hard? Shoot, I just walked in here the first 2 years and won 2 conference titles, man. I should have been moved to the Big Ten here for Oregon. I think Michigan, to your point, I think it's a great question to ask. Ohio State, Michigan, last week of the regular season, if Michigan wins that game, I cannot imagine a world where the committee says, 10-2 Michigan, sorry. Now you gotta wait on the outside looking in here, folks. You can't. Even if they don't win the Big Ten championship, if they end up fighting their way in and the USC tiebreaker breaks their way, I still think Michigan at 10-2 gets in, man. I think that win over that team, just the committee that seems to value the eye test, I don't know how that game would look, but I have to imagine it would look pretty good for the folks in maize and blue. Michigan, to me, is the one that is at the front of the 10-2 line outside of Notre Dame, should they finish 10-2 in that respect.
Yeah, I can already see, depending on how the rest of the season plays out, the 10-2 debate is going to just be nuts, because then it's like, all right, there's a scenario where we have 10-2 Notre Dame, 10-2 Texas, 10-2 Oklahoma, 10-2 Michigan. Vanderbilt still frisky. Like,
Golly.
there is just so much. I can already see the 10-2 wars are going to be starting in our comment section and beyond for these last couple playoff spots, and we'll see how it goes. But just last thing on a Oregon post-Indiana game, I feel like they've really made a point to run the ball. 3 games post-Indiana, they rushed for 415 yards, 203 yards, and 261 yards against Iowa last week.
Iowa,
this is a team that is just seamlessly transitioning into the Big Ten. They're running the ball better than Indiana now, average yards per game on the ground. Like, if we're talking about last year, things turned around for Ohio State post-Michigan game. Oregon may have already had their Michigan game. We won't see it till the postseason if it really kicks in and they have their postseason demons to fight from last year sitting at home and then going out there embarrassing themselves against Ohio State. So we'll see, man. I think there's something to this adversity heading into the postseason, and Ohio State's going to get their fair share at the game fighting those allegations after losing that game so many times in a row. But Indiana, Ohio State, man, it doesn't get much better. That's probably what it'll be. And would curious to see what the Hoosier faithful looks like in a One Lucas Oil Stadium for that one.
I have one of my best friends in the world went to Indiana. I was talking to him on the phone a week or two ago, and he's like, dude, I already bought tickets.
You have to.
He's like, dude, if we make the Big Ten title game and it's in Indianapolis,
you're there.
Those things are going to skyrocket, 1, and 2, I want to be there. Like, I'm going if I'm a Hoosier fan. So I'm with you. Pseudo home game. Last thing on Oregon, I feel like they kind of got hazed a little bit in the Big Ten world. Like, you kind of got initiated. Hey, now you played a game where it's 2-0 in a torrential downpour against Iowa. Now you're a Big Ten team. I know you won the conference last year, but now you win a game scoring less than 20 against Iowa. You're a Big Ten team.
Baptized but I'm with you. In the trenches, man.
In the trenches,
It's the only
man.
way to do it in the Big Ten.
Has to be, man. I'm with you, though. I think Ohio State, Indiana is likely the matchup we see there in Big Ten country.